All right, good afternoon. It's obviously day 39 year of lockdown in South Africa. Um, and obviously, it's a tough time for everyone. I think if there's anything we've learned through this lockdown, it's certainly perspective. People are dealing with their own little battles at home, etc., through this tough time. But the whole purpose of this is really to inspire others to create. I mean, the whole purpose is really leadership, and it is to create awareness of leadership, to create young, inspiring leaders, to get them involved in leadership. And I'm very excited to host this first webinar of mine. And I have a guru here, Alex Gordon, who I'll introduce now. I actually stumbled across a little quote that says, "Leadership and learning are indispensable to each other." And I thought that's quite profound. You know, it's ever learning. You always want to grow as a leader. I know certainly personally, from my personal point of view, I don't ever want to say that I'm at the pinnacle of leadership, if there's ever such a thing. But yeah, it's an absolute honor to have Alex Gordon here. I'll have a little intro into him now, exactly if you don't know who he is. But yeah, Alex, thanks for giving up your time. I know that's one thing you can't get back. I know you're a busy man, and it's an absolute honor to have you in this webinar.
Thank you. Thanks, Gav, for the invite. I really appreciate it. And things like this, I'm only too happy to make time, because I think it's important, and it's a great way of sharing and giving back, and hopefully just inspiring. So thank you.
No, great. So if you aren't familiar, and I'm sure most of you know who Alex is, Alex Gordon's a great friend of mine. He's a mentor, and more importantly, my brother-in-law. I can openly say that you're a massive family man. I know that you've been happily married for this week. I think it is 10 years to your wife, Cindy Gordon. You have two beautiful kids, Oliver 8 and Sarah 5 years old. Not only are you a leader in the home as a husband and a father, but I know that you're a well-known, trusted, and established guru when it comes to leadership in the professional world. You matriculated from Grey High School in PE in 98. You did a BCom degree at Rose University before joining Unilever in their graduate recruitment program. You spent 10 years at Unilever before taking the leap to start your own consulting business. After 2 years of success and definitely learning from hard lessons, you stepped back into the corporate world with Diageo, where you worked across South Africa and Africa. You then joined RCL Foods in 2014, where you are currently are working today. And I know I can definitely say with high esteem that you're highly passionate about people, and you're certainly highly passionate about developing leaders of today. And it's an absolute honor again to have you, and I thank you. So Alex, I'm going to go straight into the first question. And you're obviously a proud Grey PE, a Grey High School old boy. Being in education myself, I can say that I have absolute respect for the school. Can you just share with us how fundamental was Grey PE in teaching you skills and values that have helped you in the business world today?
Yeah, perfect. I mean, yeah, indeed, a very proud old boy, and still very much dialed into the school through the Old Boys Network, etc. And I must say, when I was at school, we never played against Westville boys. I don't know, maybe you guys weren't strong enough in those days. I'm not sure. But since moving to Durban in 2002, I've had the privilege of meeting several Westville old boys, and I can immediately see the similarities between the two schools. So, and all the chats I've had with you around the great work that you're doing there. I mean, for me, it remains a privilege to have attended a school like Grey, and I think Westville boys is in a similar bracket, which is great. Getting back to the skills and values piece. It's kind of weird. When I look back, I think the school curriculum was very different back in the late 90s versus what it is today. I don't look back at my school years and specifically think of any sort of academic skill set that I got taught that stood me in good favor. It was more a case of the syllabus was the syllabus, and that's just how it worked. You did your 6 subjects, you got taught the syllabus, you had to write exams twice a year, maybe hand in the odd assignment, and at the end of the year, you got a pass mark, and it was a very, very rigid system in my view, which almost sought to just tick a whole lot of boxes, as opposed to imparting a defined set of skills onto you, okay? However, with that being said, I think there was this whole undercurrent and background of values which the school did impart onto you over your time at the school. And honestly, I mean, there's probably a whole list I could go through, but I think if I had to pick one, I'd say it was this value which I still hold dear to my heart, and that is that life requires hard work, full stop. If you want something in life, you need to accept the fact that you have to work for it, and I think the example that I often share with people is, I remember in my grade 10 year, not so proud, but I failed higher grade maths quite badly in the junior exams. I think I actually got an E. It's either D or an E, but let's just go with an E. And the school were adamant that I needed to drop to standard grade. Okay. The drama was that my old man was worried that that could affect my university entrance requirements. He was pushing this agenda of stay on higher grade, stay on higher grade. You know? But after much backwards and forwards, the school basically said, look, as long as you get an A in your matric year, in your junior exams on standard grade, you'll still get into university. So let's give Alex the best chance of success. Still going to require a lot of hard work, but we really advise that Alex moves across to standard grade maths, which is what I did. The drama was that at the end of my grade 11 year, so year before my final year, I only got a C on standard grade maths, which wasn't good enough. By June, I needed an A. So the school sat me down, in particular, my maths teacher sat me down and said, I'm prepared to put in the effort and put in the work, okay? But I need to know that you as an individual are prepared to do that too. Because it's no good me leading you down this path. If you're not prepared to put in the hard work, nothing's going to change. You know? So I gave my commitment to putting in the work. And you know, I'll be honest, you know, you look back now, like it sucked at times. I mean, I can remember during long break and the build up towards exams, I used to spend long break doing old exam papers with the maths teacher. You know? I got extra work that I used to have to do on a Saturday. You know, I attended extra lessons, you know, all this sort of stuff that I had to do. I had to plow in to make sure that I got the best pass mark that I could for standard grade maths, you know. And I did. I got my A in June. I got my A at the end of the year, which you know, on standard grade, I know it's nothing to really boast about, but I'm not the best maths guy. But you know, it set me on that path and that understanding of knowing that if you want something really badly in life, you need to work for it. And I think for me, you know, look around the world today. We just live in this world of instant. Everything needs to happen right now. You know what I mean? And we tend to, I think at times, not everyone, but a lot of people, we tend to act spoilt, and we don't really want to have to work hard. And there are examples, absolutely. There are examples of people who haven't had to work too hard and have been highly successful in life. But I can assure you, in my experience, in my opinion, those are the minority. You know, I look at people like Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Sia Kolisi, Johan Rupert, Tiger Woods. There's no ways that those individuals became successful by not working hard. They've worked hard, they've plowed extra hours in, they've done the hard yards to get to where they are. And I think for me, like I say, coming out of grade, that's the one life lesson that I still hold dear to my heart. Life requires hard work, full stop.
No, thanks, Alex. I think what I love what you say there is that instant gratification. I think that's one of the biggest issues we have in the world today is, you know, if I could say that goal or whatever your particular goal is or anyone's goal is, it's if we could compare it to the pinnacle of the mountain, we all see the goal, but what we don't see is the mountain in front of us. So, yeah, I love the idea of what you say is grit or hard work. You know, leadership's a choice, but so is working hard. So, you know, leadership also takes a large amount of courage. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that's really a lesson that, you know, a lot of young, inspiring leaders could take from that. Just quickly, could you give us just obviously a brief overview of your leadership journey that got to you where you are today in the business world and as a person?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I was privileged, I think, at school to hold a number of, call it leadership positions in inverted commas, you know, so sports captain, prefect, head of society, etc. You know, but back then for me, I mean, I didn't really view that as leadership. I kind of just view those as titles, you know, and to be honest, it's actually quite sad because they were leadership platforms that I could have used. But I guess I didn't really know how to use them. You know, it's not like I'd ever really been taught. It's not like I'd ever had someone sit me down and give me guidance. It's not like I'd read a book, etc., you know, on leadership. So I saw them more as titles as opposed to leadership platforms. And, you know, as a result, I kind of just, you know, I ticked through school, I ticked through university, and then I entered the working world. And all this time, without conscious effort, yes, I was refining my leadership, but it wasn't really a conscious journey. It was more an unconscious journey of just ticking through life and slowly developing your skill set, you know. And I think all of that, though, for me, I'd say the defining moment for me changed in my third year of work at Unilever, where I got promoted into a position for the first time in my life, which saw other people reporting into me. Okay? And for me, when people management got involved, things became very, very real. You know? Leadership absolutely is about leading self, and that's critical. But I think for me, the real heart of leadership is about leading others. Okay, and if I look at my leadership journey to date, it's leading others' parts, in my opinion, that's truly developed and honed my leadership skills, and I guess allowed me to become a better leader. And I've had the privilege. I mean, I've worked across many different teams, across a number of different organizations in the odd 15 years that I've been in the working world. And I think for me, what I've come to learn over this time, I've come to learn a lot. But the one thing is, you absolutely need to be serious about leading others. And I think for me, that's an important heartbeat of my leadership journey. So what am I doing, to develop, evolve, etc., to become better at leading others? Because for me, if I can lead others, with more purpose, more vulnerability, more fun, more impact, then surely the people who I'm leading will have a platform where they can lead their best lives, which hopefully means they'll be delivering unbelievable work for the organization which they find themselves in. So you end up in this self-fulfilling loop that just continues giving back, because you've got a leader who's passionate about leading others. You've got people who understand that, see that, respect that, and they want to then deliver back into the organization. So you end up in this circular sort of economy that just really does keep giving back.
No, brilliant. Thanks, Alex. And I'm going to touch on it later, but I think that also touches big time on culture that you obviously want to develop. I mean, you want that culture. You want happy people at work. I think, I read a stat the other day that 70% of people in this world hate their jobs, and that's, for me, that's quite scary, So, yeah, I'll touch on that later. But something that's very close to you and I, and we've chatted about this in length, is obviously South Africa, and we're passionate about this country. We've had lengthy discussions about it. So just from your perspective, you involved in the business world, working with teams, what do you feel about the future of leadership in South Africa? And can you give us any examples of this in the business world today?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for me, before I address the leadership in SAPs, I selfishly would like to take the opportunity to give my proudly South African plug here. I mean, South Africa, in my opinion, has an incredibly bright future. Yes, we have challenges, okay, but which country doesn't? I mean, you just need to flick onto CNN, Sky News, read a foreign newspaper. Every single country, whether on this continent or other continents, have issues and have problems. Okay? Yes, we've got some economic challenges coming up, some of it driven by where we find ourselves now from a COVID point of view, some of it driven by the previous president and his regime. But I really do still believe, okay, that what we've got ingrained in us as a society is that spirit of Ubuntu and work ethic, which, in my opinion, enables us to conquer anything. Okay? I've been fairly lucky to go to a number of different countries, across a number of different continents. And in Alex Gordon's opinion, nothing matches up to South Africa for three simple reasons. One, the beauty that we have in the country, the people that we have in this country, and the opportunities that this country presents. So I think for me, to any school-going guys and girls who are listening to this, absolutely go and travel. You have to go and see the world. You've got to go and live and work in different places. You've got to go and explore, but don't discount South Africa as being your permanent home when you're done exploring. Bring your skills back here and bring your leadership back here. It's my opinion that you won't regret that. So that's my proudly South African plug. Getting back to the future of leadership in South Africa, again, for me, I think it's going to be exceptionally bright, in my opinion. We're living in a country where there is opportunity, okay, which South Africa has. And I think by default, that means that there's going to be a platform for leaders to flex their muscle and make an impact. And I think, if I look and I say, well, what do we want? What would this country want from leaders going forward? I think there's three things. I think for me, we want leaders who can show resilience. Okay, it's not easy in Africa. We know that. Everyone always says that, Africa's not for sissies. Africa's not easy. So we definitely need leaders who can show resilience. Okay, but if you're prepared to show resilience, or you have resilience, I do believe that you'll be able to bear good fruit. We need leaders who can show compassion. We are an exceptionally diverse country. People from different backgrounds, different ethnic beliefs, different racial creeds, etc. So we really need leaders who can show compassion, because I think when you've got compassion, you're able to lead across many different facets that get thrown your way. And I think the last thing for me is we truly need leaders who can drive big impact. We need people who want to make a difference. I think living in South Africa, part of Africa, we can't afford to just sail along. We need people who actually want to make a real impact in this country. So I think for me, if we can get leaders in the future who can show resilience, who can show compassion, and who truly want to make an impact, I think we'll be set for a really good, really bright future within South Africa. And do I see that playing out in business right now? Absolutely. I mean, I just look at COVID right now. We're fortunate. Our business is deemed essential services because we are a food provider. So we've been operating during this entire lockdown period. And this has required exceptional leadership during tough times. It's required leadership that shows resilience. It requires leadership that has shown compassion, and it's required leadership that's needed to drive true impact. And I'm extremely complimentary of our board and our business and the way that they've handled this journey for us through these turbulent times. And I think what it's done for me as a leader within the business is it's inspired me to be an even better leader to my team. And if everyone starts to just filter and feel that positive energy flowing through, the whole organization is going to benefit from it.
No, look, thanks, Alex. I think from me being involved in education with young, inspiring leaders, it's just so overwhelming hearing that from someone like you who's in corporate world. It's like a breath of fresh air to hear that. So, yeah, I want to thank you on behalf of them now for giving us that insight. And I think you spot on when you say South Africans have a large amount of resilience and grit. I think that's probably, if I could say, our biggest strength. Put that in leadership world. And the opportunities that you speak about, that's brilliant. I just wanted to ask you, there's so many books and advice. I mean, you can go look on YouTube. There's so many different platforms like this that can be found, and you can get different topics on leadership today. Sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming, I'm sure. But is there any advice that you can give us, or give a young, inspiring leader today that would you help them on their leadership journey? A boy just out of school or someone that's just got in the corporate world. What advice that someone like you could give them to help them on their leadership journey?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think you're spot on, Gav. There's so much out there nowadays, books, internet, podcasts, you name it. And I think everyone's going to have their own opinion. I think for me, in my opinion, the advice that I would give, if you want to be a better leader, you need to strive for one thing, and that's authenticity. The world right now, in my opinion, needs more authentic leaders. And for me, the greatest leaders right now display true authenticity in everything they do. I think for me, there is no shortcut and there is no cheat to authenticity. You're either 100% in or you're out, and it really is that simple. And it's not a sometimes behavior. It's an everyday behavior. So it's not about, well, today let me be a little bit more authentic than I normally am, but tomorrow I'm just going to revert back to not being authentic. And I think for me, the reason why it's so important is authenticity is such a key ingredient in building trust. And trust is the most important cornerstone for any relationship. Okay? So without trust, relationships won't last. Without relationships, in my view, internal teams won't function at the levels that they could be functioning at. And without everyone in that team delivering the best, well, you're going to be stuck in an organization that's only ever going to fire at below optimum levels. You know what I mean? And that's why I think for me, authenticity is so key. It sounds like such a simple word, but if you think about all the things that it then starts to ignite along the way, you realize the importance of authentic leadership. And I think, there's a lot of research around authentic leadership. We could probably have a separate 30-minute chat just on what authentic leadership entails. But I think for me, 3 big things that I try and strive for in my authentic leadership journey is being open and honest regardless of the position I find myself in, okay? So I'll give you a simple example. It's really easy to give praise to someone and to be telling them what an amazing job they're doing. I'll be so open and honest with you, but it's a lot harder to give constructive feedback when performance is not good. So how do I still be authentic? How do I be open and honest with you and give you the feedback that you need to understand that your performance is not acceptable, but I'm here to support you and need you to change, the course that we're going down. So it's about being open and honest regardless of what you're facing. I think the second thing is also it's about being vulnerable. Right? You want people to build connections with you. And in my opinion, you can only build a connection with someone if you're vulnerable and you're prepared to share, And vulnerable doesn't mean, well, I come to work and I'm feeling so vulnerable, I'm going to melt down and cry about something now and show you how vulnerable. And it's little things like sharing about what's happening in your personal life. My mother's ill, or my child's ill, or I'm really battling at home at the moment with homeschooling, which is not a lie. I really am. I've always had massive respect for teachers, but I've got even more respect for teachers now. But it's about being vulnerable, and I think vulnerability opens the door for connections, for people to build connections with you. And I think the third thing, and this is probably, in my experience, the hardest part, it's always being aware that your actions are aligned with your words. It's one thing to say I'm going to be open and honest. It's another thing to say I'm going to be vulnerable, but that making sure that your actions are always aligned with your words is a challenge. Is that saying talk is cheap, and it is, but it's for me about as a leader, when you're in front of people, if you're articulating one behavior, let's say as an example, and then you behind the scenes, you seem to be doing something completely different. People are never going to connect with you. People are not going to trust you. People are not going to want to be around you. People aren't going to feel inspired by you. So you'll undermine everything else that you're trying to do as a leader if your actions are not aligned with your words. And I think those three things for me, if you can get that right, you're going to be on a journey towards being a more authentic leader.
Thanks for that, Alex. Just something I want to spend a little bit of time on here, and it might link with what you just said, is, the dreaded F word, and that's failure. I think we often are grown up or brought up, put in different systems where we sometimes fear failure. We fear making mistakes. We're worried about being judged. I mean, there's a whole lot of things that can go with it. From your perspective, how important do you feel making mistakes and learning from these errors are in leadership and business today?
Gav, I think it's a critical aspect of leadership nowadays. And I think sadly across the South African landscape, again, in my opinion, based on chats with people who work in other organizations, friends, etc., I don't think there's enough businesses that are applying this to their culture, okay? In terms of it's okay to make mistakes. I think we still live in a bit of a fear culture around mistakes. And personally, I'm very grateful that the organization I currently work for is not like that at all. In fact, we seek to embrace mistakes and we seek to learn from it. And it's quite interesting. In our business, we talk about face the brutal facts. That's what we call it. So it doesn't matter how bad it is. Okay? It doesn't matter how terrible you think it is. It doesn't matter what you think is going to happen to you, to this business. We can only make it better and, more importantly, learn from it if we talk about it. So it's a case of actually spit it out, get the brutal facts on the table, and then we can progress from there. And don't get me wrong. Sometimes that takes exceptional leadership on its own, right? So someone spews a brutal fact out and you sit there and in your mind you're going, what were you thinking? But that's not the behavior that you need to then portray as a leader. It's actually more about, okay, how do we now take this and what do we do with it? And I think, we're one organization that's doing it. I'm sure there are plenty of other organizations, but I think for me, the best example is if you step out of the sort of the industry that we're in and you move across into aviation. I mean, Gav, as you know, Cindy is a pilot. And I think for me, the airline industry, in my opinion, is the benchmark of best practice when it comes to learning from mistakes. They have what they refer to as a just culture. And essentially, it's all about creating a safe space where it's okay to talk about mistakes so that others can learn from them. They go out of their way to encourage people to talk about things that went wrong. And what could have been done differently to avoid it happening. Okay? And the learnings are then formally shared so that others can avoid falling into that same trap. And that's one of the reasons, predominant reasons, why airline travel is so safe. Because the industry is constantly learning from other people's mistakes or other mistakes that have happened. It doesn't mean the mistake needs to happen again, because it's already happened. And look, that's not the only reason why it's safe, but it's certainly one of the big contributing reasons why it's safe. And yeah, if I look at the organization that Cindy flies for, they've got a policy in place where if an incident has happened, okay, and it's one of those incidents that nothing major would have resulted anyway, but it could have potentially escalated out of control. A pilot's got a 7-day window period to turn in a report, okay, on the incident and face zero punishment. As long as you're within the 7 days of when the incident happened, you report back into the organization. This is what went wrong. This is how I rectified it. If I hadn't, the following things could have happened, etc., etc., etc. And there is absolutely zero action taken against that individual. And I think that's an amazing space to operate in. So absolutely, you want to be a good leader. You need to be prepared to learn from mistakes, but you also need to ensure that you create a space or a culture where people feel encouraged to share mistakes and to learn from them.
Thanks for that, Alex. I think, I love that. I love what you say. And I love what you say about the culture, which I'm going to touch on now. But if you can get that trust right, as you said, and you spoke about it earlier with trust, and now I'm going to touch on teamwork, then yes, it's a very good place as a corporation, as a team, or whatever you're trying to do. As you mentioned in aviation, where you can put up your hand and say, gee, I made a mistake, and there's a trust that you can say, right, how are we going to move forward from this? And we can learn from the mistakes. That's the biggest thing. So many times I've involved in teams or seen teams that sort of brush their mistakes under the carpets. And as you say, that's probably the most dangerous place to have, or the most toxic culture that you can have. And yeah, it just creates an environment where you don't want to be involved. So yeah, thanks for emphasizing that. Alex, just lastly, before we end this, wrap that up, I just want to lastly, if you can just share your experiences, that justify the importance of teamwork. I mean, you touched on culture. So if you can maybe mention something on that, the importance of teamwork and teams in the business of today. I don't know if you could maybe just elaborate that for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I think take a step back from work in general. I mean, the world is a complex place, right? We are no longer this linear society. We argue my bits, pass it on to the next person, they did their bit, they didn't pass it on, etc. And eventually arrives at an endpoint. The world just doesn't work like that anymore. The world is complex, it's fluid, it's a challenging environment. And no matter what you're trying to achieve, no matter how big or small it seems, factually, you have more chance of success if you're working in a team as opposed to try and go it alone. Okay. And I think for me, if again, talk about a very current example in our business. I look at COVID-19, and it's not just our business. There'll be many, many businesses that have been impacted by this. But the national lockdown has completely changed the world and the way in which we operate. I mean, as I said earlier, we are grateful that we are deemed essential services, which means we can still operate. But it's taken our teamwork to new levels. And it's quite interesting. In our business, we got two different types of employees during COVID. We've got what we call essential and then non-essential. So essentially, essential is you have to go to work to do your job. So you're a factory worker, think a sales rep, think a merchandiser who's packing shelves. And then we have non-essential, which are the people who can work from home. So you're still dialed up, you got your laptop, you're still working, but you're not actually going into an office. And it's been amazing to see, despite all the challenges we faced, okay, with an increased amount of constructive teamwork, we are operating on levels that's allowing us to be successful. And there's plenty of stories from our business, but I think just two that I'd share with you. One of the biggest challenges we've had during the lockdown period, obviously the COVID regulations around transport of staff are quite watertight. So things like the times that it can happen, the number of people per vehicle, etc. And as a result, we've had some challenges in terms of whether it's the end of a factory shift, for example, trying to get staff members back home or even getting people into work in the morning. And we've seen a number of stories where team members have selflessly given their own time to help transport people around. So you've got a factory worker who owns his own car. He rocks up at work, he finishes his shift, he notices, there's a group of people who've now missed a taxi, need to wait another 3-4 hours potentially, whatever. Without breaking any rules, 2 people in the car, transport those 2 people back home, come back to the factory, pick up the next 2 and take them to it. So selflessly giving of their own time to get people home much earlier than if they had to have waited for the official transport. And we've got other examples playing out in our sales teams as well, where we've had sales managers spending their afternoons and early evenings getting merchandisers home from stores to back to their homes after, where taxis have stopped running, as an example, for whatever rhyme or reason. And I think it's been interesting to watch, like these teamwork acts have helped to drive an increase in staff morale. People keep feeling positive, and everyone just wants to keep giving back to the system. And our business is really good at sharing these stories internally as well, which I think also makes a difference. And then, as I say, I look on the other side of the fence. I sit in non-essential, so I've been working from home as is my team. No travel anywhere in South Africa. Obviously, you're not going to the office, etc. And even though we are working remotely, we come from an environment where we were used to seeing each other every single day. We now found IT-based ways to stay in touch. So every Monday morning at 10:30, we have a coffee connect session over Skype. We all dial in, got a cup of coffee. We don't talk about work, but rather talk about people's weekends. What did you get up to, and how are you feeling about everything? How's COVID affecting you? How are you feeling about homeschooling? How are you feeling about whatever it might be? And then, on the back of that, what we then also started to do is I said, well, let's have a less formal session on a Friday. So once a fortnight, we have a sundowner session over Skype, on a Friday afternoon. It's all about staying connected as a team during challenging times. So it might not be face to face, which is potentially, you could argue, first prize, but that doesn't mean we can't still function as a team. And I think these examples, while I realize they might seem small and significant, in my opinion, they are completely the opposite. In terms of what they've generated within my team and within our organization. And I think, I always think back, times like this, that we talk about teamwork and the importance of it. The African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that is just so true in the business world and in life today. It's all about going together.
Yeah, look, Alex, I think one thing that you've really emphasized there is, it's obviously a difficult time, this pandemic that we're going through, and everyone's dealing with their own issues and problems at home, and it certainly teaches us perspective. But I think when we out of our comfort zone, we're certainly growing. And I think that's certainly something we can take from this. And I hear that you're sharing your stories with your team. I think it's fascinating. And it's just so amazing how we can do that. We're going to come from it better. I think we're going to come out of this better. We're going to come out a stronger, wiser, a bigger perspective. We're certainly going to, I know from my perspective, is I'm going to appreciate the small things in life. So yeah, thanks for that. Look, Alex, I just want to thank you. I really, really honestly want to thank you for giving up your time. I think one thing is so evident is the amount of passion that you speak with. And the way that you speak about your people. I think that's one thing I've taken out of this, and I'm hoping the same thing for anyone who's watching this, and certainly for young inspiring people, young inspiring leaders who are going into the corporate or business world or whatever their ventures may be, is that you certainly speak into the heart of your employees, and that's evident the way you've spoken about them. You've spoken about it. It's about the people. It's about getting vulnerable. It's about understanding what they're going through. It's about creating a culture that is right and practices empathy. So really, I want to thank you for that, for sharing that. I think the biggest thing is if you get the culture right in any corporation, then ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things. I think that's massive, and it comes down to leadership. So Alex, thanks for what you're doing in the corporate world. Thanks for what you're doing in South Africa. Thank you for inspiring young leaders. And I've said in the beginning that you certainly are a mentor to me. And I'm hoping that even if just one person watches this webinar and takes something from it and can inspire them into this leadership journey, then we've certainly done just to this. So again, Alex, thank you. And
absolute pleasure.
Yeah, and keep well.
Yeah, absolute pleasure, and keep up the good work, eh?
Thanks, Alex. Thank you.
Cheers, eh?